Now, when you first start lifting in the gym, it's kind of just doing any exercise that looks good, that you enjoy, that you've seen on the gram. Now I've been so obsessed with trying to squeeze out every single drop of gains humanly possible with the time that I give myself for training and the time that my clients give themselves for training. It gets more than that. And thinking about how a resistance profile or how challenging an exercise is across different parts of the exercise isn't something I've considered massively up until the last 2.5 years, but even more the last 5 months, getting deeper and deeper. I actually shout out Joe, my neighbour, because I think we both have come from different sides, different echo chambers in the fitness industry with regards to learning about getting stronger, building muscle, etc., etc. And that's opened up the discussion for learning. So always when you get your ego checked, when you get new information, when you go through this challenge of like, okay, wait, I really don't understand this because my answers aren't fully clarified, they aren't clear, they aren't concise. It's clear I don't have a full grasp of this concept. I need to level up my knowledge and understanding. And that's what I'm going through at the minute with regards to how to optimally set up an exercise so it makes it perfectly tough throughout. And I'm just scraping the surface because this is a really complex issue, complex topic, because there are a lot of unknowns and it's a lot of hypotheticals because the research is like done on a lot of small study groups and there's a lot of variation because for example, one of the factors is where your muscles attach to your tendons, to your bones on your body, and obviously across the population you're going to have differences there. So that's your internal moment arm, effectively, the perpendicular angle from where the tendon attaches to your bone, and that will dictate. So like I'm doing bicep curls here and I might do a set at a certain weight and someone else might come and do a set. Let's say Joe comes and does a set at the same weight. It might be harder for us at different points because of our leverage, and our leverage is dictated, our internal leverage, aka where the muscle attaches to the tendon to the bone. So like we might have the bicep muscles attaching further down the forearm, and then we might have a bit better leverage, and therefore the weight is easier for our tissues to move, and we don't have that same resistance, so we actually need to put more external load on just to get that equal stimulus. Say we had the same strength muscle fibers. This is why you'll see like a lot of people with like aka sleeper builds just lifting ridiculous weights. One of the reasons could be where their tendons attach to bone. It just gives them better leverages so they can just move more weight. So it's a big factor. That's one of the factors, and it's this. There's been a hype in one area of the fitness industry around neuromechanical matching, which I spoke to Pat Davidson about, and I've spoken to a lot of people about, and it's effectively, from my current understanding, the body will choose the most. It will activate the muscle with the best leverage. It will choose to turn on the muscle with the best leverage because it's the most efficient muscle to turn on. Therefore, we want to set up exercises that the target tissue has the best leverage, so that tissue is the one that gets activated or stimulated. The motor units are recruited rather than another tissue. That's the argument, and we want to make it most challenging for that tissue throughout the exercise. So that's effectively what neuromechanical matching is. Big fancy word for saying the central nervous system tries to work in the most efficient way, and we should choose exercises to line up with that. And Chris Beardsley and Paul Carter are kind of pushing this to be one of the principles for hypertrophy training, the main principle for hypertrophy training. And other they're not, Paul Carter's not a scientist, but other parts of the industry, the N1 guys, a lot of the stretch cult are kind of suggesting that those papers that talk about neuromechanical matching have too many limitations and there's not enough research there. And it's an oversimplified, I wouldn't say it's an oversimplified view, but there's just not enough research to support that theory, even though it is an interesting one. So when exercise selecting, currently I'm not choosing an exercise or setting up an exercise based on neuromechanical matching, because I think you should try and match the resistance profile of an exercise to the human strength profile. And there is a lot of individualization there across a population, but that's where I currently sit. And on most exercises, we have the best leverage in the midpoint, in the middle aspect, the middle part of a lift, the middle part of a squat, when the hips, knees are at 90-ish degrees, the middle part of a bicep curl, 70 to 80 degrees at the elbow. This is generally where we have the best leverage based on our internal moment arms, and we can produce the most force. So you would theorize you would make that aspect the hardest. But another factor is the external load and the external moment arms, because that changes throughout a lift. So for example, on a bicep curl, the external moment arm is greatest at that midpoint. You generally see, if someone's doing a standing bicep curl, the preacher curl that you're watching here is slightly different because the angle I've got it set up at, it is pretty challenging in that lengthened position. We've got a bigger moment arm there, based on just when you're standing with your arms, with your humerus just resting by your side. So that's a slight difference here, that I've set this exercise up to be challenging in that lengthened position as well as in the mid position. But I'm currently biased towards challenging exercises more when a tissue is in the lengthened position, because generally the external moment arm is smaller, and therefore the actual load that the torque that the tissue needs to create to rotate around the axis is lower, because the external moment arm is smaller. So I will therefore manipulate an exercise or a machine in order to increase the resistance in that lengthened position to accommodate for that smaller moment arm, so that the resistance throughout the exercise is theoretically more aligned with the strength profile. Now, theoretically, I want the exercise to be as challenging as possible for a tissue across a rep range, say 5 to 15 reps, whatever I've chosen to do, that each aspect of the lift is significantly tough. Because you'll often see, like, I don't know, the top 10 degrees of a squat. No one's failing that. And generally, the bottom part of a squat, unless the weight's way too heavy, you're not failing there. Most people fail lifts in the mid portion of the exercise, even though that's where we're strongest. But that's because the external moment arms are greatest. So the torque that we actually have to produce is significantly greater than the other aspects of the lift. And my thoughts are, like, you have massive cross-sectional areas of tissues, and theoretically the way I see it, different parts of the tissues will be stimulated during different parts of the lift, when they have better leverage, when they're getting recruited more. As others get fatigued, more will get recruited, as well as, that's a very oversimplified thought of it, because you also have, like, the position of your bones and how these muscles attach, and, like, you can subtly change the position of a wrist on a bicep curl and bias a different aspect of the wrist, like bias a different aspect of the bicep. Like, again, there's a lot of levels to this, and I'm just at that beginner level learning. But I'm having this discussion with a lot of coaches, like, what is the best way to set up exercises, and in order to get the optimal challenge over time. And you want it to be optimally hard, and figuring that out is a hard thing. So my general advice is, if you can make an exercise have a higher level of resistance when you have smaller external moment arms, it will be a more challenging stimulus throughout each aspect of the lift. Like, these bicep curls, it's easy that first part, and then it gets harder in the middle. That middle part is just extremely tough because the external moment arm is biggest. So ideally I would make this a little bit harder by leaning back, so my torso is leaning back a little bit, still got that stability, but my back is flat. Like, there's a lot of things playing around here, and I'm really making this video to gather my thoughts and get them all down. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you got something from this. Been a super productive week of training. I'm tired, very tired, but it's going well. I hope you have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the video.